I first interviewed Aaron and Amanda in February of 2023. Once again, you'll notice the difference in the length of my hair. That's an obvious pointer. Aaron is a carpenter and a builder by trade, and so he reflects on the process of building a tiny house on wheels that really challenges his original ideas about construction. So he reflects on all the things that he learnt in that way. They also had a very sort of evolving approach to their tiny house design. They had disparate design preferences and had to agree on something so that the tiny house that they have made represents their wonderings and their evolutionary thoughts about that tiny house build. Also, stick around till the end because they're still living in their tiny house. They have expanded it, they have changed it as their home and family has grown. Their home has grown with them. So do stick around to the end to see essentially what ends up becoming the before and after pictures, because these are all pictures that are up to date as of 2025. So I really hope that you enjoy this take from them, because we do span years. We see what it was like for them when they had just moved in and their reflections on the building process, as well as what it's like for them now. A little bit of a trigger warning: miscarriage has been part of their experience, and that is alluded to in their conversation. So if that's a sensitive topic for you, there's no details. It's just something to be aware of, that that's been part of their life. They share very sensitively and with a joyful outcome at the end. So please stick around and enjoy the conversation that I had with Aaron and Amanda in New South Wales. Candid Tiny House is a podcast and a video where I get to go back to our past clients, people who've bought a trailer from us and taken a course on how to build a tiny house on wheels in Australia, and they've gone ahead and built their tiny house. And then we get to have an honest, deep, reflective conversation about what it's really like to build a tiny house, so that you can learn from their reflections, their mistakes, their wisdom, all of their rich and varied experiences from building a tiny house on wheels in Australia. So grab your notebook and a cup of tea, because we're sharing real stories of what it's like to build a tiny house in Australia. Well, thanks so much, Aaron and Amanda, for joining me on Candid Tiny House, talking about your tiny house. Do you want to start by telling me just some of the beginning of the journey? Like, what was a defining point where you decided now is the time, we are definitely going to build a tiny house?
Well, hey, do you want to start?
Yeah, because I was interested in tiny houses and then shared it with Aaron early on in our relationship. And then we went to one of the tiny house expos in Sydney to check out. And then that was kind of, Aaron's like, yeah, let's do this. And this was way before COVID.
Yeah.
But because we were living in Sydney at Northern Beaches at the time, and then where the house is on Aaron's family's property, out the Central West and Wiradjuri country. So we're just out of town of Bathurst in Rockley Mount.
Mm-hmm.
But so before COVID, we had that time of getting out here only on it was Christmas holidays or long weekends. And then COVID hit and we weren't allowed out here. So I know in all the research and all the videos, everyone's like, the longest thing with tiny houses it takes is time. So we definitely felt that with all the other factors coming into that.
Yeah. So when did you decide to build? It would have been, are you saying it was like 2019 because it was before COVID was a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We picked the trailer up from you guys. We met you at the border. It was actually at the start of COVID because we weren't allowed to cross.
Yeah, it was the very beginning.
I think you guys crossed and we met you, picked it up November of 2020 or
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm imagining that the event that you would have attended might have been St. Ives. Was it the Sydney? Yeah. And it was like the last big tiny house event that happened.
Yeah.
It was shortly after that everything shut down. That's right. And we were allowed to deliver across borders because it was a freighting circumstance and freight was allowed to continue. but you aren't allowed to cross, so we had to meet you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you
Yeah,
get
so
through
we
some obstacles already just by starting, haven't you?
yeah. So it was, yeah, I was just obviously, took a deep interest in it with the way of life, the lifestyle of it, not really being drawn to being in a mortgage for the rest of my life. Um, and then, yeah, so I was just, think that financial aspect of it, and then also, just around living lighter on the earth and having much less of a footprint was a big draw card. Um, yeah. And then as soon as we both shared it with Aaron, he was keen to jump on and start the journey. As I said, that was early on in our relationship. We're like, oh well, if we don't work out, it doesn't matter. We've got a house that we could just sell. Like it's not like we're going into mortgage forever. So we kind of took it in early in our relationship as a project. And if we didn't work out, it's fine. We could split that, small amount of financial input that we put into it.
Mm.
Yeah. So it was,
She was optimistic about our relationship early on.
And you're still here. How many years later?
yeah.
3 years later?
Yeah.
And Aaron, I believe that you have some trade skills. You didn't come in completely green, learning it on the job, did you?
No, I'm a qualified carpenter and builder, so but I'd never built a tiny house before and never dipped into those realms. So there was challenges there, just learning, um, I guess, the process there. Because as we discussed the other day, yeah, it was really hard to get your head around from going from building on foundations to building on, a trailer or building a tiny house or a transportable home. So because building on foundations, bigger is always better. Um, and I probably have a tendency to go overboard with things sometimes too. So I had to like really check myself sometimes throughout the build process and be like, okay, like this is definitely sufficient enough, but do I actually need this really heavy lintel that I've got above this window or door, because there's no actual point load, on it because there's actually no weight on the roof. So I definitely had some challenges and some relearning um, when it came to that sort of process of things.
Yeah, just managing the weight. It takes going back to first principles, doesn't it? Like, what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to solve?
Yeah.
And, is that relevant in this project?
And I think a little bit of almost having to swallow your own pride too. Like, oh, I'm a builder or I'm a carpenter. I know how to do this. And it's like, well, yeah, you may have a skill set, but you don't have a skill set that's necessarily within like this category. You might have to learn a few new things too.
Yeah, yeah. Not many builders get to build a vehicle on their weekends. Just as a matter of course, as a matter of their training or their experience. So it is a transition to getting into a different mindset and thinking about it all afresh.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did your course early on, which really helped. But yeah, really struggled to find a lot of information out there, that was the technical side of things.
Mm.
There's a lot of information out there that sort of shows you the polished version of it, but
Yeah. And that's what I was looking at, the polished versions. I'm like, oh, we could do this. And Aaron's like, no, it just does not look like the right way. So that was a learning as well, because what you see the whole, um, you know, the social media versus reality, like that I think definitely played a part, because it's like, I would be showing these beautiful glossy houses, but then Aaron was learning that there's no way that looks underweight. So that's either a house that's probably staying on the property and not leaving, or it's not in Australia.
That's another big factor. North America,
Yeah.
you have a lot to answer for. You set our dreams so high. And then we come crashing down to our reality of 4.5 ton legal limit for a affordable braking system. So
Yeah.
now where do we go?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's tricky, isn't it? It's like you get so in love with a particular form of what the tiny house could look like, but then applied to existing regulations or circumstances, there's a lot of compromise that has to happen.
Yeah, and we even had that, like, with the journey of this build, like, I remember when we spoke to you back then when we were, like, re-changed our house because we were pregnant. I was pregnant with twins, and then that, universe had a different plan. So how we had the plan at that time then completely got changed. So now we're left with a big bathroom. So, like, we
Mm.
initially had a bathroom that was gonna be split, and that would be a corridor to a door with another tiny house for the girls' room. So then we've all, what happened there in life, then that's completely changed how we built it. And I think, to be honest, in that period, we didn't really sit down, and it was probably just through grief. We didn't actually sit down and think, oh, what can we do now? We were just like, oh, well, this is just going to be a bathroom. So we have the big bathroom for a tiny house.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 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 And that it sounds like if that's a clear space, it's open to remodeling in some way. Like it could be
Yeah.
remodeled in any way when you get to it, if you want to,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you could leave it as an opportunity for an external door because there are many reasons to expand what the tiny house offers. Like there are many opportunities to just park another one
Yeah.
against it.
So that's, I suppose, where those, not only COVID, but just so many changes through our build that's contributed, hasn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your tiny house represents like a product of your evolving thinking and your evolving relationship with the house and what it needs
Mhm.
to do and provide over those
Yep.
2 years that you were building.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, it's just reflecting life, isn't it? The way that it
Totally.
needs to keep updating. Our tiny house has had to evolve its uses in many ways. We haven't adapted the design much, but just having to just keep going, okay, now what is it? Refresh, reconsider what it offers us and what
Yeah.
role it's going to play in our lives. What were some of the questions that you wanted answers for, Aaron, when you were researching that you found it hard to access for technical solutions for that kind of thing? Do you remember what you were looking at?
I'd say just what goes into the bones of making a tiny house. Like, where do people, like, where are they cutting? Where have they been able to cut weight and still make it, a safe, solid structure that's, attached well to the vehicle that it's built on?
Mm.
Um, yeah, I guess just not the end version, basically. I can't specifically remember, but I do remember a lot of the like parts along the way being like, oh, I wonder how, they've done that. But then you go online and you generally just get the very like polished end version of it. And you're like, well, it doesn't really help me at all because I can't really see the process and what went into it or how long it took. Um,
Yeah.
I found your podcasts. So we were listening. I went through and listened to all your podcasts again, and then was just literally taking notes. So, like, obviously, what you're doing here is like great because it's relevant to Australia. So
Yeah.
it's relevant to our laws and regulations, or just everything. Like when someone was talking about the insurance company they got, I'm like, oh, great. So it just takes away the research. It's networking. It just takes away all that additional stuff that you have to do. Like, even we don't have one yet, but when one of the couple talked, like they showed that they got the Smeg dishwasher. So it's just stuff like that. Like, I'm like, okay, so obviously people have done that extra research around energy efficient, more water efficient. So I'll have a quick look. It just kind of leads us directly to what I was looking for when I was doing research. Yeah.
So that can help you just do a hop, skip, and a jump. They're probably using the same metrics as you when they're researching appliances and insurance companies and
Yeah.
solutions for detailing the corners or, what are you doing about your height in your loft, that kind of thing. So that
yeah.
sounds, yeah. So I think that you're right. Like what we see on social media when we look up tiny houses is the completed walls, it's the completed kitchens, it's the completed um, shiny surfaces and storage solutions, but you don't get to see inside a wall or inside a floor or inside a roof as often. And there's not much to say like, well, how tested is that method? Like say you saw the way somebody was attaching their wall to their floor with a wood screw down into the new chassis of their trailer. Is that a good method? Is there any critical thought around whether or not that's going to withstand upward lifting forces or any kind of winds? So I guess it's great to be able to share some of those technical solutions that you get to see what's going on inside a wall, or have somebody sharing the outcomes that they got from the same metrics. Yeah.
I think because you did ask before, I think one thing that's just come to mind too is the use of reclaimed material and probably hearing someone else's experience, because while the whole ethos around reusing materials is great and I'm all for it, but
And which was my ethos and probably Aaron's headache.
but there are times where it's probably maybe not the best solution when it comes to the thermal performance of the building, or whether that material has toxic material in it. We've got old French doors, that more than likely had lead paint, and are not. I can feel the draft, coming through the front door. They're beautiful old French doors, but they were a lot of work to get back to some sort of state that we could actually install them, and B, are not very thermally efficient.
How they leak notoriously.
Notoriously leak. Secondhand windows, which we have quite a lot of. We even pulled windows out of like skip bins, that people were
I
throwing out.
in Northern Beaches, someone had double hung windows in a trailer, and I went and knocked on their door. They didn't answer, so I left a note and said, "If you're throwing them out," and they're like, "Yeah, come and get them."
Terrific. It's devastating, isn't it? That they'll just put small windows in skips. We have a salvage yard nearby in Castlemaine, and it's so hard to buy secondhand small windows. And they reckon that it's just because you can't fit them in a skip, or you can fit them in a skip, sorry, so that you can just, if a builder's demolishing, they'll just go, well, that fits. See you later.
Yeah.
All windows.
Aaron ended up with one from his work site. His boss gave him, and it was like a $2,000 window or something.
Yeah, windows is a big one. The size of windows, because the windows that we've put in the kitchen area where we're at right now are quite tall, and it dictated the height of our loft. So we've got quite a spacious kitchen area, but the loft is not quite as high as I would have liked it. But we couldn't actually physically bring that down without the loft sort of, hitting the window.
Sure, windows
So
aren't
that's
really great at holding up lofts.
so that's
The glass.
so that's dictated. That's dictated that design a lot too.
To be honest, I might interject. I actually, because I'm in the kitchen, this is my space. I work from here and I'm all about food. So I am in here a lot, and I actually do appreciate that it is really open. Because even when I'm at my mum's, their place up the coast, her kitchen's smaller than mine, or smaller than ours in a house,
Oh, wow.
and feels more closed in. So I do appreciate. I understand what you're saying. And I know but I suppose for me, being in this space all the time, I do appreciate that it actually is opened up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're awake in it, you're living in it, you're asleep in a
Yeah.
loft typically, so
Yeah.
you don't need as much head height or considerations
Yeah.
around that. So that's nice that a compromise at the beginning around what height the loft could be at feels like it's actually worked out for you. Might not be everyone's
Yeah.
choice around where they'd want to put it, but it sounds like it's been a
Yeah.
positive at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
What else?
So it's a lot. Well, lighting a building is great, but it's also depending on the position of your building and the way that the sun's tracking across it. If you've got the sun beaming in on big open doors and windows, and they're only single glazed, which ours are because they're old and secondhand. We noticed when we first moved down here was we have a deck on here now with a roof, which is shading quite a lot of the house because we're north facing from that northern sun, has cooled the house down like tremendously. But before that, we were just getting like baked. And because
Yeah.
our house is monument, so it's dark anyway and it's drawing heat, we were really, really hot. So that's something else that we didn't probably really think too much through. We're like, just kind of got stuck in the thought of like reclaimed materials and how good that was, and not so much on what would actually like once we're in there.
Yeah. It's a big hit, isn't it? Like, to think about that, like how much that can impact your design. I know that monuments are super popular color in houses on foundations as well as tiny houses. But I think that it's really good for people to recognize that when we're doing that, and especially with our awnings, because the awning is over a window is actually going to be the thing that locks the sunlight from beaming into your little solar cooker that you've made yourselves so as soon as you create a black walled, eve free tiny house, you've got a very, very hot problem, and the only way to fix it at that point is to either build an awning or even install an air conditioner. And a lot of our building standards are solved, like the problems that they create are solved by throwing appliances at them. Throw in the air conditioning to fix it, rather than building in a design that works for that very small space. So yeah, we try to warn people about the tiny house is going to be much easier to heat than it is to cool. So building in those cooling passive design stuff that you've done already with putting in your awnings, that makes a big difference. And then you don't have to have such a big reliance on an air conditioning appliance that if you're trying to be off grid, that can cause a real, like it puts a lot of load on your off grid system if you have to
Yeah, definitely.
all
Yeah.
the time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even Aaron, obviously being a builder and having that eye, since we've got further into the tiny house builds and just seeing other ones, especially so where we are, it's cold, like in the winters, and we get frosts and everything, and you're seeing companies build tiny houses that aren't actually subflooring or like just enough to keep them warm.
No underfloor insulation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great to be able to provide that when you
Yeah.
can. Yeah. Yeah, and to think all those things through. You're in a unique position in that you have designed and built your own tiny house. You have the experience of living in it, so you know what it's like to live in it, and you can put all those design solutions into your future builds. And you are building tiny houses, yeah, Aaron?
Yeah. I'm currently building a 9.5 at the moment. It's the one that's heading north.
Yep, that's big.
Yeah. There's not a better experience than actually living in it, I feel, though. I feel like it's one thing just building them, but you get a very real world sense of what it's like, having to live in and experience those really hot days or those really cold days, or
The space.
those slight design flaws that you made. Because a tiny house doesn't operate like a big house does. Like, I noticed the difference because we're on family property here. My family are just up the hill there, and they're in a brick veneer, but quite a big home. And the difference on a hot day between like our house and theirs, like there's no aircon on up there. They've got no fans, and it's quite cool, Whereas our little house, like it's
Curtains
a lot
down.
more susceptible, to getting that heat, like, or to getting hotter. So
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
exterior walls all around, and you don't have the benefit of thermal mass. Like if they're in a double brick veneer or a brick veneer house, they've got
brick veneer, yeah.
yeah, well, they've got a lot of thermal mass to stabilize the temperature
Not to
change.
mention it's 10 times the size of ours.
That's tricky to
But in saying
beat.
that, tiny house, I realize we've got so many different spaces. So there actually just feels like ample space in all different areas to not be, crowded in each other's space. Because obviously we've got the kitchen, the lounge room, the two lofts, and then having the deck, we've got a dining table and then a lounge as well.
Nice. And are we on a kitchen bench here or like a breakfast bar kind of thing?
Yeah, breakfast bar. Yeah, on the bench.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
breakfast bar.
Breakfast bar with a aluminium sliding window. It's heading out towards the deck.
Right.
Or onto the deck. The original idea was to put bifold there, and then we looked at the price of what brand new bifold aluminium windows were, and we decided to go with the $50 eBay window instead.
That sounds pretty reasonable.
So we'll open up a fire screen one day. So it's like, can be, what the bifolds do.
Yeah.
Passing in and out, just do it out of our $50 window.
Hey, how'd you go with budget?
So we, as it stands now, we haven't calculated the final cost, but we'd be somewhere between sort of, I would guess about 65 to 70,000. and that's with everything that sits in it now. That's the whole like deck extension, water tanks. We had to trench power from the main house down to here.
So we'll do solar will be the next step, but why were we
We are
doing it?
yeah, we are wide for solar, but we haven't put solar on yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and just the little expenses you don't think about moving into a house that you might need, like I don't know, like we need to get a dishwasher, or a washing machine that we just actually didn't have from previous moves. Um, what else would there be?
But I think there was additional costs from our initial thought in our head because, um, like Aaron was initially going to do the joinery for the kitchen and that, and then we were going to paint it ourselves. I painted the door and some of the windows, and I am the roughest painter. So I'm not painting the house. It'll look messy. So we got painters in, and then Aaron was working.
I was just running out of time because I was only working like on weekends or afternoons, and after working on other people's houses, it was really hard to come home and find the time to build my own. And we were just it was time was getting stretched out, and we just wanted to move in, so we were having to bring in additional help, and obviously that incurred a few more costs as well.
Yeah, so you mentioned the painters, and what other trades did you bring in to help you get over the line and move in?
So painters, joinery, and plumbing and electrical was the only thing. Everything else we did ourselves.
Yeah, the tow truck man
Yeah,
to take it from one end of the property to the other.
yeah.
And how did that go? Tell me that experience.
It traveled well.
Yeah,
It didn't go
oh,
very far, but
We went down the lane, like the street, which is kind of like on a slant, which looked a bit hairy watching it, but
we're parked up against in between two dams, and there's sort of a creek bed that runs by us, and where we wanted positioned was really, really hard for him to sort of back in and still be able to get the truck out. So he had to do have you ever seen the movie Austin Powers where he gets stuck in the tunnel?
yeah, it's one of my favorite
And they
films.
do. Yeah. He had to do one of those to get out, and I was standing in front of him, like in the creek bed, trying to give him like guidance so he didn't actually fall into it.
Mm.
But yeah, he was really good and wouldn't accept any money for it. So
Wow, so how did you score him? Was he just a friend of the family or
like the friend he dad.
friend of a friend, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And what did he tow it with, given that it was just on a private piece of land and didn't go on any public roads?
Just a little flatbed, like a medium rigid tow truck,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
a shorter wheelbase one.
Didn't your dad want to do the tractor for us or something?
Yeah, Dad wanted to hook it up to it. We got an old tractor here that's on its last legs, and he was trying to work out a way to attach the 70 mil tow ball to the tractor so then he could tow it with the tractor. And you see, well, some
Yeah, I've seen that done before. Can work depending on the tractor, of course. And the track that you're tracking it on.
Yeah.
but I wouldn't have any problems with this being on the road. Like we built to the UCM method, so I wouldn't have any problems with it being on the road, or if we did ever have to move it, that it would be safe and solid. So,
Mm.
like I said, I went above and beyond with things, probably to the point where we would be
Over-engineered?
over-engineered, but we'd be at weight or probably slightly over at the moment. But like we said, we're on family property, and we are planning to leave this here permanently now.
Which I suppose that was another thing that that wasn't part of our plan at the beginning. So initially we weren't going to leave it here. It was towards the end. Aaron's dad said, like, just leave it here and, you can look at renting it out if you guys want to go. Yeah, that's why we were really through the journey, watching the weight and everything around the weight. And then in the end, when he said that, I'm like, oh, we could have done all this different stuff, but it works either way.
Yeah, well, it makes it much easier to sell if you do want to get your money out of it. Like, I think it's really nice to be able to sell it and somebody can put it on their property where they want it later on. If you want your tens of thousands of dollars back again to put into something else, it does make sense to keep it movable. And even if that means taking a few things off it or out of it for that transport event, so that you're definitely within the weight compliance, then it's great to be able to achieve that without too much work.
Yeah.
And to get around that in the very end, that's what we did do. Like Aaron's built a wardrobe not fixed to the house. So it's something that can come out Yeah,
It needs to be.
if it needs to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like a
that's
free
nice.
cubes.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, I've heard some people leaving the screws exposed, for example, at the back so that it can be fixed and it's pretty neat, but it's a contingency plan. You can easily remove that cabinetry, which
Yeah.
joinery does carry a lot of weight, so it's a neat fix. I think the thing to
Yeah.
think about with that, if anyone's listening, thinking about, oh well, I'll just do that. I'll make all of my joinery contingency plan and I'll just take everything out. That it does have, if you're doing it en masse, it's a big project to move the tiny house if you're also having to hire a moving truck for all the furniture that you've got to take out. And it just, so I sort of think, that does impact the cost and of moving. And given that we don't know how many times we will have to move, it's good to, really think about that with how secure the land is that you've got. Sounds like you're in our ideal position with family having
Yeah.
that land so that you could leave it here if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But I guess everyone's situation is different because this current build that I'm doing, it's really important to them that they are able to leave everything in there because they do move around quite a lot. So having it like not just on weight, but like well underweight so they can still put their clothes and just all their miscellaneous sort of knickknacks in there and still move around is really, really important to them too.
Absolutely. I love it when, some people have built some of the tiny house plans on our um, website and they've come back like the Fred and Shannon 7.2. Somebody recently built that and it came in at 3.9 ton completed, which means that he can chuck in 600 kilos worth of his stuff to tow it. So if
Wow.
he wants to change states, it costs him just the tow of the tiny house,
Yeah.
not an extra vehicle, in
Yeah.
transporting all his stuff. So I think that that's a really neat ongoing gift that someone can give themselves in the future. Like, yes, we're managing the build over 1 or 2 years and it's stressful and it's hard to make all those decisions, but you're taking care of your future self that might have the tiny house for 10 or 20 years. And every time you have to move it, how light is that feeling? That, yeah, I can move it. I can call it like a company and I can have it insured tow and
Yeah.
I can chuck my additional stuff in there and I know that I'm right to go.
Mm.
So that's a nice thing to be able to do.
Yeah. And even what you just were saying there about like that 1 or 2 years it takes that stress. Like I felt that. And then I was like, oh Amanda, put it in perspective. People are doing this for 40 years. Like that financial burden. Because obviously I was working a lot to have that cash flow for all our bills. So sometimes I'll be like, yeah, getting a little stressed or overwhelmed. And I'm like, no, it's okay. It's perspective. Like it's just a really short time that you're doing this. And then you've got financial freedom.
Yeah, you had like a 2-year experience of busting your gut for a house financially, and then you go, "Oh, actually, that was sort of like my mortgage, and I'm done now."
Yeah,
So easy.
totally. Yeah.
That's so nice. What was it that you expected to pay, and how does that compare to what you ended up paying?
I was sort of anticipating around about 50,000, and we ended up somewhere around about 70. But obviously, that's materials only. I'm not paying for labor. I'm not paying for someone to build it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had plumber and electrician because legally you need a licensed plumber and electrician. And we paid for like the painting and a few other little things here and there. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with where we came in. Like we have quite a really nice, like usable, livable space, and something that we sort of funded ourselves and didn't have to borrow any money, and I think it was a really good outcome. Yeah,
Yeah.
We borrowed 10 grand off my mum and that was it. The rest was,
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And it would pay itself back over rent that you've saved in a short while, presumably.
very short amount of time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially when you have like big ticket items, like, the trailer can be just itself, is quite expensive. So that's like a large percentage of that 70 grand that we've spent right there. So if you take that out of the equation, like for what we have, we've done really, really well.
Yeah.
And then stuff like, say the press tin, which was a bit of a journey.
Yeah.
I think we spent a couple of grand on that. And then Aaron learnt that it was, oh, you can talk about that.
So
But yeah, then we didn't use it or we only used a part of it. So there was like there was some cost that probably,
Yeah, we bought
in that
there was a few, so there were a few sort of design changes along the way, just due to inexperience too and not having used the product. One was pressed tin. It's a really light product and I really like the look of it, but it needs a solid sort of substructure under it, not to have it like not wavy or to have like joists very sort of close together and not at the
Mm.
900 that we had them at for the ceiling.
So more for a ceiling than a,
Sort of
wall.
vertical.
So we were going to do the whole ceiling of the tiny house in pressed tin. But I realized after trying to put one or two up that it just didn't look great. It was very, very wavy and it was something that I wouldn't have been happy with. So we ended up scrapping that idea and then having to resell it and we lost money there.
Mm.
We did use pressed tin in the ceiling of the bathroom and the back and the shower area and the
Yeah.
backsplash just behind us.
Leftovers there.
Um,
Yep.
the other one was we bought hardwood floors, old Tallowood, um, hardwood from a school that had been ripped out of a school in Sydney. Thinking we're going to use that and then realized that we were going to be way too heavy with that. So we had to resell that and lost money there.
Yes, right. So it's tricky, isn't it? Because sometimes when we're in a house project, we can sort of go, oh, I'm going to buy that and I'm allowed to make mistakes. If I don't use it, I can sell it. But it's still tricky, isn't it? Because you've got to factor in the cost of stuff ups or change of mind or anything like that. So a bit of a contingency budget is always
Mm.
sensible, where you realize that you've gone and invested time and energy into a part that you think is going to work and you really end up having to sell it and you're not necessarily going to make your money back. It's true.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we were very fortunate because our bill was spread over a long period of time that we could just unload with cash as we were earning it.
So we didn't have a strict budget. We weren't working really tight in a budget.
No, no. If we're being really honest and really candid, we didn't have a strict budget or a design. Like
Yeah.
we'd sat down and sketched it out and we'd built a little 3D model with, I think it's like a hard cardboard you can buy from Officeworks. We sort of glued that together. We were very haphazard with this build.
Mm.
Very ad hoc as you went.
Yeah.
Because our house looks nothing like that little 3D. And we changed it so many times along the way and just would, make stuff up. And I suppose that's because Aaron is a builder and he's skilled in that to probably go with that flow a bit more, or that freestyle flow.
Yeah, you can
Yeah, I
see quite
literally
a few
just sat
steps.
in the shed and built the walls. I was like, this will look good, and I'll just do it like that, Which is it is handy in one sense, but you do get caught out on the other end too by not having that forward thinking and not planning, as meticulously as you probably should have as well.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because it does come down to millimeters sometimes, whether or not a door's going to freely swing open or whack into something, or
Mm.
if you can foresee all the consequences of that design change. Like it's great that you're able to move forward with so much confidence and make design changes on the fly. Probably most people would find themselves in a bit of a regretful design decision
Mm.
at that point. It's really nice to be able to flesh it out in 3D space and complete the design before you start the build.
Yeah.
Yeah, for most people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually struggled with, in terms of design, like the, I never realized it was a thing until I was with this house build. Like Aaron would show me samples, which are like this big.
Mm.
And I'm like, I don't know. I need to see it on the whole.
To imagine this tiny, 10 centimeter by 20 centimeter sample as a 4 meter square walls, design. It's really hard. It's really hard to imagine the proportions of color or texture or
Yeah.
how it's going to show up.
Because services are a big one too in the design process, and ours was changing so much and evolving. Like we had things that had been put in, that had been hidden behind a wall, and at that point, it's a lot harder to change, where hot and cold water's coming out or electricity is coming out without having to actually rip that wall apart and redo it again. So, that was definitely an area we got called out as well. we've got things that are coming through cupboards and then through cupboards to sort of make it to where the appliance is because we've changed or we've got it in the wrong spot.
Right, okay, yeah, so really being clear about where your services are gonna be and not
Yes.
changing that will probably save people money. So there's
Yeah.
flexibility around joinery, but maybe not around the sink position kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was good advice.
And that was because like I visually had it mapped in my head and then went around and like spray painted where I thought stuff would be going to like the electrician or whatever. And then later I'm like, oh yeah, okay. That didn't that's not 100%.
Not 100%. Might have made a few mistakes. Valuable, fallible self. It's good to be able to own those mistakes.
We had some really high tech planes with spray paint just dotted here and there. And everywhere.
We had post-it notes. They were very movable and they got moved a lot. We did our electrical plan about 8 times before we settled on it. Took a long time. What about neighbours? Did you ever ask any neighbours for their input? Do you have any interaction with neighbours where you are?
We do. The neighbors were so supportive. Actually, and then we had like our neighbors over here. They're living off grid themselves, so we want to go look at theirs. They want to come look at ours, and then we've had other neighbors up the back that have wanted to see it. Yeah, so the neighbors have been really supportive. And happy for us on the journey. So we've had no issues with neighbors or council because we're out of town. So
That's great.
We are on family property and an extension of the main house anyways.
yeah.
Legally allowed to stay here.
Right, because they're that lovely clause in New South Wales local laws that you get to have a tiny house because if you're part of the household, isn't it? Do you ever approach their neighbours? Like, can you tell me about that? If you approached them and said, "We're thinking about doing this thing," would that get in your way at all? Or did you just sort of happen to be talking to them one day and said, "This is what we're doing"?
A lot of them actually saw it being built over the period of time. They're like, "What's that you're building? What's that you got?"
Yeah, and a couple of them would come and check it out. And they're obviously friends with Aaron's parents, so that relationship, that's I suppose strong relationship was already there with the neighbours. So there was no concern
It wasn't
at all.
really an issue for us.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. And I guess for
Yeah.
any listeners who are wondering why I'm asking about neighbours is I guess a lot of local law councillors have to respond to complaints made by neighbours. So if there is a unhappy neighbour, that can be a problem. And if they're supportive, it sort of means that there's no complaints. In that case, there's nothing to follow up. And I guess that is more relevant in places that aren't New South Wales or that have different local laws where they might say, you're not allowed to live in a tiny house on private property, in which case a neighbour complaint might mean a very limited stay at that place.
Yeah.
It impacts different people differently.
Yeah. And that was actually something we learned from Fred early at that St. Ives show, like just talking about communicating that with your neighbours from the beginning, inviting him over, like letting him know
Introducing yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's saying that you're going to do.
and just how it won't impact them. So that was something we did learn earlier from you guys.
Yeah, nice.
I'm not too sure if that's like few and far between, but my experience has been everyone's been really supportive. Like no one's gone like, like you can't do that or you shouldn't do that or it's not the right thing to do. Everyone's like really interested and just think it's a great idea and would either like to do it themselves or know someone who wants to do it or so I guess we've had a really pretty positive experience when it comes to other people's influence around what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I think that's a really common experience too. Most people float the idea and then have, being open to objections, but actually what they get is offers for help. It's like, oh, can I do something for that?
Yeah.
Like, can I help you with that in some way? Because it ticks a lot of boxes for people. Ethical housing is such a massive draw card for so many people. So it totally makes sense.
That's another really important, I think, element that I've learned along the way too is I've gotten really good at my weatherproofing systems, especially around windows, because if you've got a building that doesn't have any awnings that's exposed to all the elements, you want something that you know is not going to leak, and you'll be able to sort of be confident, in that when you're laying in bed at night and it's the wind's blowing sideways like it was yesterday.
Mm. Yeah, it makes for a pretty disturbed sleep if you're wondering about whether or not the house is shedding water properly, shedding it
Yeah,
away from you. Yeah, yeah. So that's nice if you feel like you've solved those problems and you're confident in your flashing and you're confident in your window choices. What
yeah.
about people who've helped you? Like, do you reckon? I mean, it sounds to me like you had a place to build, you had a place to stay, presumably whilst you were building.
Yeah.
Did you have, like, somebody who swooped in and made the whole thing possible, or a series of people? Like, what are the kind of community connections that people might be looking to secure before they start their build?
Um, I think, well, firstly, my father's a licensed builder anyway, so that helps straight off the bat. And then just having the ability to be able to build it on family property was obviously another huge help.
Your dad played a big role.
Yeah.
He was because I was scared of heights, so I was no good for a lot of them. So even when I'd hold the ladder for Brian, I'll be like, "Oh."
Yeah.
So, his dad worked and his dad's retired as well, so he spent a lot of hours up there with Aaron helping.
Yeah.
Um,
Because there are a lot of tasks that just require two people. You
yeah,
can't do it by yourself. And when you're at heights, it's even more dangerous. So he was a massive help.
yeah. Well, I had my sister because I was just getting tangled in understanding the visual design thing I explained earlier.
Mm.
So I always she was just always I'd always message her for advice and would talk about matching and stuff like that, and your sister as well. Um, my mum was alone.
Yeah. We had one of your friends come out sporadically to help sand for a day. No, let's come out.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And, what did you guys do for your accommodation whilst you were building? Did you live on the property or did you live nearby? How did you solve that one?
So we were actually living in Sydney for 2 years while I was back here and sort of traveling back and forth. And this was during COVID, so that's why the build took so long, because obviously COVID hit and we weren't actually allowed to physically get back and work on it. But when we were, it was long weekends or holidays.
Mm.
Um, so in the grand scheme of things, it probably didn't take that long to build.
Yeah, have you calculated how many days' work it took?
Maybe 3 months, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've got this current one, which is a 9.5, and I've I've had a little bit of help, and I'm probably sitting at about 10 weeks and nearly completed.
That's great. And that
Mm.
means that you've been able to order all the materials beforehand, so you're not waiting on deliveries for the next part to progress.
Which is huge. Yeah, you definitely need to have a lot of forethought, and because things are, I don't know what it's like down in Victoria, but like you can be waiting 3 months for certain things here, if you haven't ordered on time, and one thing can hold up the next, which can hold up the next, and all of a sudden, a 3 month build turns into a 6 month build or a 12-month build before you know it. So
Yeah.
pre-planning and pre-ordering stuff ahead of time
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah, making your selections early, getting all those
Yeah.
things sorted so you know what to order. Another thing that I think is a bit of a hurdle is the storage of materials.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you guys solve that?
We're on 40 acres and there's a pretty sizable shed out here, so that wasn't really an issue.
But also your dad's shit, there's
I've taken up most of it.
Right. Thanks, Dad.
Um, but I'm guessing if you weren't in that position, yeah, that would be massive, especially because I built not undercover as well. That's probably something else to consider,
Mm.
is you don't want the building sitting there uncovered to the elements for too long.
Yep.
Um, and especially if you don't have the ability to be able to store materials undercover as well. If it's stuff like framing timber, it's nice to probably get it just before you need it, because you don't want it sitting there in the elements in the hot or the cold or the rain for too long, because you want it installed and, you know,
Erected.
yeah, in place Rigid's the word I'm thinking of, yeah.
Mm.
Because otherwise timber does all sorts of funny things if left to its own devices.
Yep, we left our, floorboards in the sunshine for too long, probably 2 days or something, and they cupped. And next thing
Yeah.
they all went up in a funny little U shape. We had to sand them all back down again. We were like, "Bloody hell, that was quick." I think any sort of investment is just lots of tarps and clamps to cover everything up, for the period of
Yeah.
time that you're waiting to install them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's, so stressful when you've installed something and it's finished and then it's wrecked, It's terrible. And how's it gone with your relationship? Like, do you have any reflections on what it's been like to build together and then live in a tiny space together over these last little while?
I'd say we had opposing views on design,
Okay.
really every aspect.
Okay. It's a fair bit of design tension there. How would you summarize that? Like, one person, you've already talked about how you wanted more reclaimed materials and you were using with those ethics in your decision making, Amanda. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think just being willing to compromise is probably a big one too.
Mm.
You
With the
obviously
build.
just to build in general, yeah, if you've got an idea in mind and then you go to your partner with that and they don't like that, like you need to come to some sort of agreement, and either compromise or at least go with what they want on some things and then maybe go with what
Yeah.
on other things.
Yeah.
And it was definitely testing for sure. Yeah.
Mm.
There's not a lot we agreed on in the design elements.
Okay. Well, you guys have done really well then to have a house at all because you could have easily not built anything or built two completely different houses, but you came up with one house.
Yeah. And then I like on one of your podcasts where the couple were talking about with a fight, how you've got to like move through it quite quickly because you've only got that space. Um, and I said that to Aaron because Aaron really likes his own space. Thankfully we haven't had that moment yet, but I feel you just go outside and that'll go up to the shed anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely.
There's no escape in a tiny house. You are in every room, you are in the same room.
That's right.
You're in a different room, but not.
That's right. Tricky, isn't it, for the introverts among us? Just, just want some space. Yeah, I feel you.
I sort of realized that when I had a friend come out and stay with us for about a week, and the first night he was here, because we've got two lofts and one looks over the other, and we didn't really have any storage or any sort of walls up at that point. And we're in bed and he's in bed, and like we're looking over and we're like, "Hi."
But and also in saying that it worked, um, obviously with like long term, but just having three adults in this space coexisting, it's like that works. Like in the kitchen, you just learn each other's rhythms and grooves.
And how long it stays.
Well, he's actually out here for like 10 days.
Nice.
He was helping Aaron work on the other house.
Yeah.
That's a really long stay for another adult in a tiny house with a couple. That's huge. I think most people at day 3, they would have been like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go and look for accommodation."
The boys were working long days up at the other house.
Yeah. So you come home knackered, eat and go to bed.
Yeah.
I think we were getting out doing stuff a lot too, like going to town or going to dinner.
Yeah.
That's one thing I did hear a lot is like it does force you to get out, it does force you to, like we don't have like a huge, big, comfy lounge area like, like a big house. So, you might be more inclined to actually want to go camping or want to go, do whatever it is, go for a swim, like rather than just sit in the house and veg out all day.
Sure.
But I do like that aspect about it.
Mm.
It's consciously changing your lifestyle. And that's what I said to friends when I gave them a tour of the other house. Yeah, it was kind of like, oh wow, this is small. And it's like, yeah, but it's a journey. Like living in a tiny house, you are consciously changing your lifestyle. And that we had started to do prior to living in it. It's definitely a house that matches your values and your ethos and the lifestyle that you want to live. So
Yeah.
I feel the transition for us has been really easy.
Yeah, especially if those, being more connected to nature, being outdoors and active and not living in a cozy sort of interior world where you're inside
Yeah.
all the time, but being out and being connected, if that's a value of yours, then it's going to be very
Yeah.
supportive of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, nice. Great. Thanks for telling us all about that. Is there anything else that you thought maybe it would be really good, like something that you wish you knew or a skill that you wish you had or anything like that before you started?
I wish I would I wish I like just me with heights because I feel like I could have contributed a lot more.
Mm.
Aaron and his dad were up on scaffolds and that. I
Yeah,
was
so
like,
if you could magic away that fear in your body, then that
yeah,
made you more useful on site.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, if anyone comes up with that pill, I'll be
Yeah.
interested because I'm scared of heights too. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, I definitely like in hindsight next time have a plan.
Resolve.
If you are DIYing, you do have a bit more fluidity in terms of like making changes. But I guess if you are having someone take the reins a bit more, like someone external, like a builder, you probably do need to have a bit more planning because they're gonna have a lot of questions along the way, or they're gonna need that information. So, each case is different as well.
Okay, thanks so much, guys, for sharing with me all this great knowledge and lived experience for your tiny house. It's been wonderful.
That's all right. Thank you for having us. And thank you for doing these podcasts because as I said, they have been super helpful for our journey as well.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. We appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Thanks, guys. You're welcome. Anytime. So that was Aaron and Amanda in 2023. And the update for 2025 is that they've had a daughter. She's a toddler now. They're still living in their tiny house. They have expanded their tiny house to um, include the deck. They basically built in the deck so that they had a whole nother living space. This meant that they were able to dispense with the small living area that they had allocated inside the tiny house, and they have made that into a symmetrical staircase that goes up to both different lofts. One of the changes that Amanda had said that she would have done differently if she'd known was that she would prefer to have the child's bedroom on the ground floor. So she wouldn't do a kid in a loft at this young age if she had her time again. She's really enjoying still living in the tiny house. It does provide them with complete financial freedom. And Aaron's been able to carry on building tiny houses for clients as well as other, other building projects that are on the conventional scale. So thanks so much to Aaron and Amanda for sharing your updates and your images of your beautiful house and your wonderful family. And we very much appreciate your generous offerings and we wish you all the best. If you're interested in building or buying a tiny house on wheels, I highly recommend taking our online course, which is called How to Build a Tiny House, the Australian online course, and you can find it at tinyhouseuniversity.com.au. Hundreds of people who've used it to build a successful tiny house on wheels, and you can too. We also offer weekend workshops throughout the year where you get to sit for a whole weekend in a classroom environment and thrash out the problems of tiny house building. You'll be taught all of the basics, plus a whole bunch of new material about vapor permeable membranes and everything that we've learnt from passive house experiences for tiny house living to get the best thermal performance and humidity management in your tiny house. And you'll also get the benefit of hearing other people ask their questions and all of the discussion that really helps people thrash out their thoughts about their tiny house building project. With the weekend workshop, you also get the online course for free. So that's a really awesome set of ongoing notes that you can use throughout the period of time that you're building your house. So pop over to fredstinyhouses.com.au/education to find out more about those education offerings. You can follow Fred's Tiny Houses on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Pinterest. You can also reach out to us and just write to info@fredstinyhouses.com.au, and that email comes to me and I'll write back. If you're ready to buy a Fred's Tiny House trailer, then pop over to our website, fredstinyhouses.com.au/shop, and peruse through our wide range of tiny house trailers. We only build tiny house trailers. We don't build any type of other trailer. We specifically design all of our trailers with your house in mind. So everything that you need to think about for a tiny house build is considered inside a tiny house trailer design from Fred's Tiny Houses. So check that out at fredstinyhouses.com.au/shop. Please share these episodes with people that you know and love who are interested in tiny house builds. The more people who know about it, the better. Give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube and on Google and on Facebook and all the places. We love 5-star reviews. You'll see heaps of people have already done it, and we're really welcoming more because we want more and more people to build successful tiny house builds across Australia. Thanks heaps. Join us next week where we meet Nick. He had his tiny house built and he got that fabulous weight outcome that we discussed with Aaron and Amanda. So you get to hear all about the success of his tiny house journey, and he completely achieved financial freedom. So stick around to hear from Nick, who is still in his tiny house.